Will you be my mummy's Valentine?
Where is your mummy?
She is in the hospital.
What happened to her? Why is she in the hospital?
She is very sick and needs money for treatment.
A little girl pushed open a heavy glass door and stepped into a world she did not belong to. Crystal chandeliers glowed above polished marble floors. Everything about the place whispered money, power, perfection. In her tiny hands, she held a bouquet of bright red roses. The flowers were fresh, beautiful, almost too beautiful for the trembling hands that held them. A few heads turned. What was a child doing here alone? Zara stood in the center of the restaurant, her heart beating loudly in her chest. For a moment, fear threatened to swallow her courage. The lights were too bright. The room was too big. But then she remembered her mother's weak smile on the hospital bed. The beeping machines. The way her mother's hand felt cold when she held it. So Zara lifted her head. She slowly turned in a circle, her wide eyes scanning the room. None of them looked like the kind of man who could be her mother's Val. Then her eyes stopped. At the far end of the restaurant, at the most expensive table by the window, sat a man alone. Collider, a billionaire Zara, took a small step forward. Then another. Her little shoes made soft tapping sounds against the polished floor as she walked toward his table. When she reached him, she stopped. Kola looked up, confused. A child in a red gown stood before him, holding a bouquet of roses like an offering. For a second, neither of them spoke. Then Zara lifted the flowers toward him, her small hands trembling. "Sir," she said softly, her voice small but brave, "will you be my mother's Val?" Not Valentine, just Val. A word she had created. But in that moment, standing before a little girl, offering him roses, he found himself unable to speak. But this was the moment his life was about to change forever. If you believe that love can come from the most unexpected places, then support this channel. Subscribe for more powerful, emotional stories. Like this video if this touched your heart, and comment below. What would you have done if Zara walked up to your table that night? There were two worlds in the city. One of dazzling light, where glass towers touched the clouds and money flowed like endless traffic. And one of fading hope, where rooms were large, walls were clean white, and dreams had to learn how to whisper. On a rainy Valentine's night in one of those small rooms, a 5-year-old girl named Zara decided to build a bridge between those two worlds. Inside a big, well-furnished apartment, the rain tapped softly against a cracked window. The single bulb in the ceiling flickered, as if it too was tired. Zara sat on the marble floor, her legs folded neatly beneath her. In front of her was her most precious treasure, a small piggy bank shaped like a cat, its paint chipped from years of loving use. She picked it up with both hands and shook it gently. The soft rattle of coins filled the room. "Don't worry," she whispered to the piggy bank, her voice small but determined. "It's for Mama. I will bring it back." She turned the piggy bank upside down and carefully unscrewed the bottom. Coins spilled onto the floor, rolling in different directions. A few crumpled naira notes fluttered down like tired leaves. Zara gasped softly and began to gather them, her tiny fingers moving with surprising care, as if each coin were something fragile and alive. 1, 2, 3. She counted under her breath, lining the coins in a neat row. She paused, frowned, then counted again. "It's small," she murmured, her brows knitting together the way she had seen her mother do when worried. "But maybe small can still help." The room was quiet except for the rain and the faint hum of the clean ceiling fan. Zara picked up a small purse, the kind her mother used to carry to the market. It was worn at the edges, but clean. She opened it and gently placed the coins and the folded notes inside, smoothing them as if that could somehow make them worth more. "I'm sorry it's not plenty," she said softly, as though someone were listening. "I wanted more. I really wanted more." She stood up and walked to the narrow bed in the corner of the room. Hanging on a nail above it was her best dress. The color were bright, and the fabric was clean, but it was clean, neatly pressed, and precious to her. Zara reached for it with both hands and pulled it close to her chest. "This one is good," she told herself, nodding slowly. "Mama said, when you go to ask for help, you must look like you respect yourself." She slipped into the dress carefully, struggling with the buttons at the back. Her small fingers fumbled, then succeeded. When she was done, She smoothed the front of the dress, straightened the hem, and stood very still, as if waiting for approval. In the corner of the room, on a small wooden table, was a framed photograph. The glass was cracked, but the smile inside it was bright. Amara, her mother, beautiful, warm, alive in a way the hospital machines could not steal. Zara walked over slowly and lifted the frame with both hands. "Mama," she said, her voice trembling but brave, "don't sleep too long today, okay?" "I'm going out to find your Val," she smiled, trying to be cheerful, the way her mother used to smile for her even when she was tired. "You said Valentine is for love, and love makes people strong. So I will bring you love, I promise." Her eyes filled with tears, but she wiped them quickly with the back of her hand. "Don't worry, I am not scared. I am a big girl now." She pressed her small forehead gently against the glass of the photo, then held it close to her chest for a moment, as if hugging her mother through the picture. "I will come back soon," she whispered. "When I come back, you will be smiling like this again. You will see." The rain outside grew heavier, drumming against the roof, but inside that tiny room, a little girl zipped up her small purse, took one last look at her mother's smiling face, and squared her shoulders, ready to step into a world much bigger than her fear. The rain fell harder as Zara reached the front of the Ivory Pearl, an exclusive restaurant glowing softly against the dark, wet streets of the city. The building looked like a palace made of glass and light. Expensive cars lined the curb, their polished bodies reflecting the neon signs and streetlights. Engines purred. Doors opened and closed. Laughter spilled out into the rain. Zara stood still at the edge of the pavement, a tiny figure swallowed by the night, her thin shoulders soaked, her breath coming out in small white clouds. She clutched her bouquet of 3 red roses to her chest. The paper around the stems was already damp from the rain. One petal had bent slightly, and she tried to straighten it with her thumb. "Please," she whispered to the flowers, as if they could hear her. "Don't spoil now. Shh. You are all I have." She lifted her eyes to the tall glass window of the restaurant. Warm light spilled from inside, wrapping the people within in gold. Zara pressed her forehead lightly against the cold glass and peered in. Inside, men and women sat in soft chairs, their clothes bright, their smiles easy. Plates of food steamed on white tables. Music floated in the air. Everything inside looked warm. Everything outside felt cold. A waiter passed by the door and noticed her. He frowned and shook his head slightly. "Little girl," he muttered to himself, "this is not a place for you." His voice did not reach her, but the feeling of being unwelcome did. Zara swallowed. "Mama needs her Val," she whispered to herself, her voice trembling. "I will find him. I must find him." Her eyes moved slowly from table to table. She saw couples leaning close, laughing. She saw men checking their phones. She saw women lifting glasses of wine. None of them looked at her. None of them looked like the man she was searching for, though she did not know what that man should look like. Then she saw him. At a prime table near the window sat a man alone, handsome, impeccably dressed. His suit fit him like it had been sewn onto his body. A glass of expensive wine stood untouched before him. His phone lay beside it. He was not smiling. He was not laughing. He was staring at the red liquid in his glass as though it were a memory he did not want to touch. "That is him," she whispered, though she did not know his name. "You look like someone who can help." Inside, Billionaire sat in silence. The noise of the restaurant moved around him, but it did not reach him. He lifted the glass slightly, then set it down again without drinking. "Valentine," he murmured to himself with a tired half-smile. "What a useless day." He looked around at the happy faces and felt the strange weight of being alone in a room full of people. Outside, Zara's small fingers tightened around the roses. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely louder than the rain. "Please be kind. Please be my mama's Val." The rain slid down the glass between them, drawing thin lines like tears. Zara wiped her face with the back of her hand, took one deep breath, and straightened her small shoulders. Her eyes did not leave the man at the prime table. In that moment, standing in the rain with nothing but 3 roses and a fragile hope, she had chosen him. She walked straight toward Billionaire. Kola lifted his head, startled by the sudden shadow at his table. For a second, he thought he was imagining things. A little girl stood before him, soaked from the rain, wearing a bright red dress that looked far too grand for her small frame. In her hands were 3 red roses, their stems wrapped in simple newspaper, the paper damp and crinkled. Kola frowned softly. "Hey, where did you come from?" he asked, glancing around the room. "Is your father here? Your mother?" Zara swallowed and took one small step closer. Her hands shook as she lifted the roses toward him. "Please, sir," she said, her voice small but clear, carrying through the quiet space that had formed around them. "Be my mother's Val." The words hung in the air. Not Valentine. Just Val, a title she had invented. A name for the hero she was hoping for. Kola's breath caught in his throat. Looked around quickly, expecting laughter, cameras, a prank. "Is this some kind of joke?" he murmured under his breath. He scanned the nearby tables. No one claimed her. No one laughed. The restaurant had gone strangely quiet, as if everyone was holding their breath. He looked back at Zara. Her eyes were wide and shining, her face serious in a way no child's face should ever have to be. Kola stood up, then slowly knelt in front of her, bringing himself down to her level. His tailored suit brushed against the polished floor, the sharp lines of his wealth and power contrasting painfully with her small red dress and worn shoes. "Little one," he said gently, softening his voice. "What do you mean by Val?" Zara nodded as if she had expected the question. "Val is someone who helps," she said carefully, choosing her words. "On Valentine, people help people they love. My mama needs help." Kola's eyes flicked again to the roses. "And these?" he asked quietly. "They are for you," Zara replied, "so you can say yes." The Mater D hovered a few steps away, uncertain. Kola lifted one hand slightly to signal him to wait. His gaze returned to the child before him. "Where's your mother?" he asked, his voice lower now, gentler. Zara pointed vaguely toward the door she had come through. "In the hospital," she said. "She is very sick. I don't have much, but I have roses, and I have my heart. If you are her Val, maybe she will not be so tired anymore." Kola felt something twist deep inside his chest. He did not yet understand why this small girl and her invented word had reached him so deeply. All he knew was that, in that moment, the world he had built around himself felt very small, and the courage standing in front of him felt impossibly big. Kola didn't hesitate, before anyone could stop him, before questions could be asked. He scooped Zara into his arms. Her small body was light, but her grip was firm, clutching the bouquet of roses to her chest. "Hold on tight," he said softly, his voice low but steady. "We're going to help your mother. Will she be okay?" Zara asked, her words muffled against his chest. Rain dripped from her hair, and the scent of wet earth clung to her dress. "She will be," Kola replied, though even he wasn't entirely sure. He pressed his hand gently to her back, trying to offer the promise of certainty he did not yet feel. "I'll make sure of it." The car ride was quiet except for the hum of the engine and Zara's small, uneven breathing. She looked up at him once, her eyes wide. "Sir, you really are going to be her Val?" Kola glanced down at her. "I am, I promise." His jaw tightened. "I don't care what it takes." When they arrived at the public hospital, the stark fluorescent lights and cold echoing hallways swallowed them. The smell of antiseptic hung heavy in the air. Kola carried Zara through the sliding doors, her small hands gripping his collar, until they reached the ward. Inside, the scene struck him like a blow. Amara lay on a narrow hospital bed, pale and fragile, her chest rising and falling in uneven, shallow breaths. Tubes snaked across the sheets, monitors beeped steadily, and the faint scent of medicine mingled with the faint perfume she had once worn. She looked smaller than he imagined, yet there was still a grace to her, a quiet dignity that even illness could not erase. Zara's grip tightened on the roses. "Mama," she whispered. Amara's eyes fluttered open. When they saw Zara, a weak smile tried to break through her exhaustion. Zara," she rasped, her voice fragile. Kola froze, his chest constricted. There was something familiar in the curve of her cheek, the tilt of her head, the way her hand hovered over her heart. A flicker of shocking recognition crossed his face, sharp and sudden. I know you," he breathed, stepping closer, but keeping his distance as if afraid the truth would vanish if he reached too fast. "It can't be." Zara looked up at him, sensing the change. "Sir?" Amara coughed softly, clutching the thin blanket over her chest. Who is this, Zara?" He's going to help us," Zara said confidently, holding the roses higher. It's going to be your vow. Kola knelt slightly by the bed, keeping his eyes on her, trying to steady the whirlwind of emotions inside him. We'll make sure you are safe, he said, voice low, almost a whisper. No one will let anything happen to you. I promise. Amara's eyes searched his face, faint recognition stirring behind her tired gaze. Kola's heart thudded in his chest. In that quiet, stark hospital room, with monitors beeping and the rain still falling outside, the world seemed to pause. A billionaire with everything, yet here facing a frail woman in a hospital bed. He felt the weight of everything he had lost, and everything he might finally be able to save. The doctor spoke in a low, careful voice, the kind of voice people use when they are afraid of breaking hope. He stood at the foot of Amara's bed, flipping through her thin medical file, his glasses slipping slightly down his nose. Her condition is rare, he said gently. The lungs are failing faster than we expected. We can stabilize her here for now, but the treatment she truly needs, it's not available in this facility. Kola's jaw tightened. He listened without interrupting, his eyes fixed on Amara's fragile chest, rising and falling with effort. Where can it be treated? He asked. There is a specialist abroad, the doctor replied. In Johannesburg, they are testing an experimental therapy. It has shown promise, but it is costly. Very costly. Travel, admission, treatment, recovery. It is not something most families can afford. The doctor hesitated, then added softly, even with assistance, many do not survive long enough to be transferred. Zara stepped closer to the bed and reached for her mother's hand. Mama, don't worry, she whispered. He said he will help us. He is your Val. Amara tried to smile, but the effort made her wince. Zara, my love, she murmured. You don't ask strangers for the impossible. Kola lifted his gaze to the doctor, his eyes steady now, his voice firm with a decision already made. Do everything, he said. Arrange the transfer. Send her to the best facility in Johannesburg. Money is no object. The doctor blinked, taken aback. Sir, are you certain? The deposit's alone. I am certain, Kola cut in quietly. Prepare the paperwork. Call the specialist. I want her on the next available medical flight. The room seemed to exhale. The doctor nodded, already pulling out his phone. We will begin immediately, he said, his voice filled with cautious relief. Thank you, sir. Kola reached into his jacket and produced his card, placing it on the bedside table with a soft, final tap. Clear every outstanding bill, he added. All of it. Now, Zara's eyes widened. Mama, she whispered, her voice shaking with hope. Did you hear? We are going to the place with the big doctors? Amara turned her tired eyes toward Kola. You don't have to do this, she said, her voice thin but proud. We are grateful. But this is too much. Kola shook his head slowly. It is not too much, he replied. It is exactly enough. As the doctor stepped away to make the calls, Kola looked from Amara to Zara. The child's face was lit with fragile hope, and the woman's eyes held a mix of fear and gratitude. Something old and heavy stirred in Kola's chest. The look in his eyes deepened, a quiet personal pain flickering beneath the resolve. This was not charity. This was not a generous impulse of a wealthy man. This was a debt awakening, a promise rising from a place far older than money. Weeks later, the air at the private recovery villa was calm and clean, carrying the soft scent of flowers and fresh grass. Sunlight filtered through tall palms and settled gently on white walls. Amara sat on a cushioned chair on the veranda, a light shawl draped over her shoulders. Strength had begun to return to her body. Her breaths were deeper now, steadier, no longer a quiet battle for air. In the garden beyond, Zara's laughter rang out as she ran in small circles with the nanny Kola had hired, her red ribbon bouncing in her hair. Kola stood a few steps away, watching them with a quiet smile that faded as Amara's eyes lingered on him. She studied his face, the calm, confidence, the careful kindness that never seemed to announce itself. You come every day, she said softly. You sit with us. You ask about my breathing. You ask what Zara ate. You make sure the nurses have everything. Tell me, Kola, why? We shifted his weight, hands clasped loosely in front of him. I told you, he said gently. You needed help. Amara shook her head. No, she replied, her voice steady now, no longer the fragile whisper of a patient. This is more than help. This incredible kindness. It is more than my daughter's roses could ask for. She paused, then added quietly, People do not do this for strangers. Kola inhaled deeply, as if drawing courage from the air itself. His gaze drifted to the garden where Zara laughed, then back to Amara. 12 years ago, he began, his voice heavy with old weight. My first company failed. Everything collapsed. I lost my savings, lost my name. I lost the confidence people had in me. He let out a slow breath. I was ashamed. I was tired of trying to be strong. One night, around 3 a.m, I found myself sitting by a bridge. I told myself I was just resting, but the truth is, I was ready to let the night take me. Amara's eyes widened slightly, her hand tightening on the arm of the chair. Kola. I was in a gray suit, he continued quietly. Dirty from the rain, my phone was dead. My pockets were empty. Then a young woman walked past me. She wore a nurse's uniform. She stopped. She looked at me like I was still human. He swallowed. She bought me a cup of tea from a roadside cellar, sat with me for hours. She talked to me when I could not talk to myself. She said, "The world needs your mind, Kola. Don't let it end here." Amara's breath caught. She opened her bag, Kola went on, his voice trembling now, and she gave me her last 5,000 naira for transport. She said, "Go home. Start again." I asked her name. She smiled, said I did not need it. By the time I turned to thank her again, she was gone. I never saw her after that night. Silence settled between them, heavy and sacred. Amara stared at him, her face draining of color as memories rushed back into her eyes. The bridge. The rain. The man in the gray suit. The cup of tea she had bought with her last money after a long night shift. Her lips parted. That was you?" she whispered. "The man in the gray suit?" Kola nodded slowly. "You saved my life that night," he said, his voice breaking free of its restraint. "Oh. I built my empire with your words in my head. Every deal I closed, every company I raised from the ground, I told myself I would one day find you and repay that debt." Zara didn't just find a billionaire in a restaurant. He looked toward the garden where her laughter floated on the breeze. Hush. She led me back to my salvation. Amara pressed a hand to her chest, tears slipping down her cheeks without permission. "I thought I had forgotten that night," she said softly, "but I never forgot the man's eyes. They were empty. And then, when he stood up to leave, they were full of fear and hope at the same time." Kohler lowered his head, emotion thick in his throat. "You gave me my life back," he said. All of this, is not generosity. It is me finally keeping a promise I made to myself 12 years ago." Kola stayed true to his word. He became Amara's vow, not with grand speeches, but with quiet presence and steady care. Some mornings he arrived early with a small basket and a soft smile. "The air is kind today," he would say, offering his arm. In the garden, he laid out a simple picnic beneath the shade of a wide tree. Amara would sit slowly, still cautious with her strength, and Zara would clap her hands in delight. "Mama, the birds are singing for you," Zara said once, pointing to the branches above. Amara laughed, a sound that surprised even her. "Then I must listen," she replied, closing her eyes to breathe in the gentle warmth. On other days, Kola drove them toward the ocean. The road curved open before them, the wind brushing against their faces. Zara pressed her nose to the window. "Uncle Val, the water's following us?" she giggled. Kola chuckled. "It's not following us, little one. It is welcoming us." Amara rested her head lightly against the seat, watching the horizon. "I never thought I would see this again," she murmured. Kola glanced at her, his voice low. "There are many things you will see again. This is only the beginning." Physiotherapy days were harder. The room was quiet, except for the soft instructions of the therapist and the steady rhythm of Amara's breathing. Her steps were slow, uncertain. Pain flickered across her face. She would pause, doubt rising in her eyes. "I don't know if I can do one more," she whispered once, her hands trembling. Kola moved closer without crowding her. "You can," he said gently. "It's not because you are strong today, but because you are brave today. Take one more step. I am here." Amara exhaled, nodded, and took that step. Zara watched from the chair, her small fists clenched in hope. "Go, Mama," she said softly. "I'm counting for you." And when Amara reached the end of the short walk, Zara jumped up. "You did it!" she cried, throwing her arms around her mother's waist. Laughter returned in small, unexpected moments. In the garden, when Kola tried to open a stubborn bottle of juice and failed, Zara burst into giggles. Uncle Val is not strong like the movies, she teased. Kola feigned offense. Ah, so you think I am only strong in boardrooms? Amara laughed, covering her mouth. Be careful, Zara, she said playfully. He might go and start lifting stones to impress you. Kola raised his hands in surrender. No more stones. I will impress you with patience. Zara thrived in the warmth of their growing circle. She began to run freely again, her laughter no longer edged with fear. Uncle Val, she would call, tugging at Kola's hand. Come and see my flower. And he would kneel beside her, nodding seriously at the smallest bloom. It is beautiful, he would say. You chose well. The name stuck. Uncle Val, a name born of a child's simple faith, now filled with real meaning. Between Kola and Amara, something gentle unfolded. Gratitude softened into respect. Respect lingered into quiet understanding. Their conversations grew longer, their silences more comfortable. Sometimes they would sit side by side watching Zara play, saying nothing at all. The space between them no longer felt empty. It felt warm. Unspoken love hovered there, patient and careful, growing not from urgency, but from the steady rhythm of shared healing. The evening air in the villa garden was soft and warm, carrying the faint scent of flowers and fresh earth. Fairy lights hung above them in gentle arcs, glowing like small stars brought down to rest among the trees. The world felt quieter here, as though the night itself had leaned in to listen. Amara stood beneath the canopy of lights, her hands loosely clasped in front of her, her breath steady. Her strength returned enough for her to stand without fear. Kola stepped closer. For a moment, he said nothing. He simply reached out and took her hands in his touch careful, reverent. As if he were holding something precious he had been afraid to name. Amara, he began softly, and her name sounded different in his mouth, fuller, warmer. She looked up at him, her eyes reflecting the small golden lights above them. You've been quiet all evening, she said gently, trying to smile, though her heart was already beating faster. Is everything all right? Claude nodded, then shook his head, then laughed quietly at himself. I've been rehearsing this in my head, he admitted, but the words never sound brave enough when I say them alone. He took a slow breath. Zara asked me to be your Val for a day. His thumb brushed lightly over her knuckles. But Amara, you have given me a purpose for a lifetime. Her breath caught. Kola. I don't want to just be your Valentine, he continued, his voice steady now, anchored by truth. I want to be your sunrise when the night feels too long. I want to be your safe harbor when the storms come. I want to walk beside you, not because I owe the past, but because I choose this future. He paused, his eyes searching hers. I love you. The words settled between them, gentle and sure. Amara's eyes filled, the light from above blurring into soft gold. I was afraid to hope, she whispered. After so much pain, I didn't know if my heart still remembered how to open. Kola lifted her hands slightly, resting them against his chest. It remembers, he said quietly. Just needed time. A tear slipped down her cheek, then another. She smiled through them, a smile made of relief and joy. I love you too, she said, her voice trembling with the truth of it. Kola leaned in slowly, giving her space to step away if she wished. She did not. Their foreheads brushed, then their lips met in a gentle, unhurried kiss. The world seemed to hold its breath. When they parted, Amara's tears streamed freely, not from pain, but from the soft ache of happiness finally allowed. Kola rested his forehead against hers, his voice barely a whisper. We will take this one day at a time. Amara nodded, laughing softly through her tears. That is all I ask. The wedding was beautiful in a quiet, intimate way, the kind of beauty that did not need crowds to feel complete. Soft music drifted through the garden as sunlight rested gently on white chairs and fresh flowers. Amara stood before Kola, her hands trembling lightly in his, her eyes bright with tears that refused to fall. He looked at her the way a man looks when he has finally found his way home. Zara walked ahead of them as the flower girl, her beautiful pink dress swaying with each careful step. She scattered petals with great seriousness, then looked up and grinned when she reached the front. Mama, she whispered loudly enough to make Amara laugh. Don't forget your words. Kola smiled, his eyes warm. And don't forget to smile at me too, he teased gently. As they exchanged vows, the world seemed to soften around them. Kola's voice was steady, but his eyes shone. I promise to choose you every day, he said. Mara nodded through her tears. and I promise to walk with you, even when the road is not gentle." When they finished, Zara clapped her hands, her grin stretching wide across her face. "You did it," she said proudly. "You were really family." Later, when the quiet celebration had settled into soft laughter and warm embraces, Kola knelt before Zara. He reached into his pocket and brought out a small box, holding it up so she could see. For a heartbeat, Zara simply stared. Then her face broke into the brightest smile. She threw her arms around his neck, hugging him with all the strength in her small body. "Yes, Daddy Vel," she cried, her laughter mixing with tears. Amara stepped forward and wrapped her arms around them both, holding them close. "My family," she whispered, her voice full of gratitude. They stood there together, the three of them, wrapped in a single embrace. In their home, not far away, 3 red roses rested inside a glass case, carefully preserved, frozen in time. Once they had been a fragile offering held by trembling hands. Now they were a reminder that love, when offered with courage, can change everything. The news reached Kola's mother in the quiet of her grand living room, carried by whispers and cautious voices. The house was large, polished, and filled with the stillness of wealth. She sat upright on a high-backed chair, her wrapper neatly arranged, posture dignified in the way of a woman long used to being obeyed. When the words were finally spoken to her, she did not react at first. Her eyes remained fixed on the framed family portraits lining the wall, her face unreadable. "You are telling me," she said slowly, each word measured, "that my son has married a woman he met on the street through a child?" The aide who brought the news lowered his gaze. "Mama, the woman was ill. He paid for her treatment. They grew close. The wedding has already taken place." Silence stretched. The awe in the room thickened. "So it is true," she murmured, more to herself than to anyone else. Her fingers tightened around the arm of the chair. "After all the families that were brought to him, after all the alliances we prepared," she stood up, her voice rising with restrained anger. "Does he think marriage is charity? Does he think love grows from pity?" She paced slowly across the marble floor, the soft sound of her slippers echoing in the room. "A billionaire's wife is not chosen in a hospital ward," she said bitterly. "Our name is not a bandage for broken lives." Later that evening, when Kola came to greet her, the tension met him at the door. She did not offer him a seat. She did not offer him her usual smile. She looked at him with eyes that were sharp with disappointment. "So," she said, folding her arms, "you have taken a wife without my blessing." Kola met her gaze calmly. "I married the woman I love." She scoffed softly. "Love," she repeated. "Is that what you call this? You confuse gratitude with love? You confuse rescue with marriage? Tomorrow, when the story changes, what will people say of our family name?" "People will say what they always say," Kola replied, his voice steady. "But this time, I will not let their voices choose my life." His mother's lips trembled, not with weakness, but with restrained emotion. "You forget where you come from," she said. "You forget what we built. Our family does not mix its blood with uncertainty." Kola took a small step forward, his tone gentle but firm. "Mama, I remember exactly where I come from. I remember nights when we had nothing but hope. I remember when you taught me that dignity is not in money, but in the choices we make when no one is watching." He paused. "This is my choice." She turned away, her shoulders stiff. "I will not accept this marriage," she said quietly. "Not today, not easily." The words fell like a verdict. The room held its breath. In that silence, Kola understood that love had given him a family, but tradition was about to test it. The argument reached Amara through the half-open door like a wound in the air. Voices rose and fell in the hallway, sharp with pain, heavy with pride. She stood frozen in the guest room, one hand pressed to her chest, the other resting on the edge of the bed as if the furniture itself was the only thing holding her upright. Kola's voice was steady but strained. His mother's voice was cold, slicing through the quiet of the house. Every word landed on Amara's heart like a small stone. She does not belong in this family. The sentence repeated itself in her head, long after the voices fell silent. She did not cry at first. She only stared at the wall, her reflection in the mirror, looking like a woman already preparing herself for loss. "So this is what love costs," she whispered to no one. "To be a burden." That night sleep refused to come. Amara sat on the edge of the bed, watching Zara breathe softly, the child's small chest rising and falling in peaceful rhythm. The room was quiet, but her mind was loud with fear and shame. I will not be the reason a mother and her son become enemies, she murmured, brushing Zara's hair back gently. I will not let my child grow in a house where she is seen as a mistake. Her voice cracked as she said it. Morning came with pale light. The house stirred. Kola prepared for work, his voice warm as he spoke to Zara in the corridor. Be good for Mama today, Princess. I'll bring you those mango sweets you like. Zara laughed. Don't forget Uncle Daddy Val. Kola smiled, kissed her forehead, then kissed Amara softly. I'll be back early, he said. Amara forced a smile that did not reach her eyes. Drive safe, she replied. The door closed behind him with a sound that felt final. The moment his car pulled away, Amara's strength collapsed into hurried motion. She moved through the room like someone running from a fire, folding clothes with shaking hands, stuffing them into a small travel bag. Zara sat on the bed, watching, confusion spreading across her small face. Mama, where are we going? She asked. Mara did not answer at first. She only zipped the bag and lifted it, her breath unsteady. Mama. Zara's voice grew thinner. Is Daddy Val coming? Amara knelt before her, her eyes glossy. We are going on a small journey, she said softly. Just you and me. Zara shook her head, tears already gathering. No, we have to tell him. Daddy Val will be sad. He promised mango sweets. Mama, please, let's tell him, please. Amara turned her face away for a moment, swallowing hard. Sometimes, she said, forcing the words out, goodbyes are kinder when they are quiet. Zara stood up, clutching Amara's dress. Mama, don't do this. I don't want to go. I want Daddy Val. Please, Mama. Let me call him. Let me tell him. We are going. Her small hands trembled as she tried to hold her mother back. Amara gently loosened her grip, tears finally slipping down her cheeks. My love, she whispered, cupping Zara's face. One day you will understand. Today you must be brave for me. Zara sobbed openly now. I don't want to be brave. I want my family. The words pierced Amara's heart, but she stood up, lifting Zara into her arms. Her voice breaking as she murmured, You are my family. I will protect you. They left the house quietly, their footsteps swallowed by the wide corridors. Outside, the morning air was cool, indifferent to their pain. Zara buried her face in Amara's shoulder, her cries softening into tired sobs. The car door closed. The engine started. And as the city faded behind them, the space where Kola's love had lived was left empty, holding only the echo of a goodbye that was never spoken. Kola returned that night with a lightness in his step he had not felt in days, his driver slowing at the gates as the mansion lights glowed warmly in the dark. In the back seat beside him were small, carefully chosen gifts. A soft silk scarf in Amara's favorite shade of blue. A tiny pink bracelet with a rose charm for Zara. He imagined their smiles already. He imagined Zara running to him, shouting his name, her small arms wrapping around his legs. He imagined Amara's gentle laugh, the one that always softened his hardest days. Good evening, sir, the guard greeted as the gates opened. Good evening, Kola replied, his voice bright. They're still awake, yes? The guard hesitated. I am not sure, sir. Kola walked into the house, calling out as he went, his voice echoing in the wide hallway. Amara? Zara? I'm home. No small footsteps answered. No soft voice replied. He smiled to himself. Ah, they must be playing hide-and-seek again, he murmured. He moved from room to room, setting the small gift bags on the table as he went. Zara, I brought your mango sweets, he called, a playful warmth in his tone. The house answered him with silence. The silence began to feel strange, heavy. He went to the kitchen, empty, the dining area, quiet. He checked the garden, the place Zara loved to chase butterflies. Nothing. A small unease crept into his chest. He took out his phone and dialed Amara's number, still smiling as it rang. No answer. He tried again. The call went unanswered. His smile faded.
Amara,
He whispered, as if saying her name louder would make her appear. He walked quickly to their room. The bed was neatly made. Neatly. The wardrobe stood half empty, hangers swaying slightly as if they had been disturbed not long ago. His breath caught. No, he said softly, stepping closer. He opened the drawer where Zara kept her little toys. It was bare. The pink teddy bear was gone. The small shoes she always kicked off by the door were missing. His hands began to tremble. He rushed to the guest room, then back to the hallway, his voice breaking as he called out again, louder now, desperate. Amara, Zara. There was only the echo of his own voice answering him. He called Amara again, pacing, his heart pounding. Pick up, he pleaded into the phone. Oh, please, just pick up. The call went to voicemail. He stood still, the truth rising slowly, painfully, like a tide he could no longer outrun. She had heard, she had believed the worst. She had left. Kola sank onto the edge of the bed, the small gift bag slipping from his hand and falling to the floor. The rose charm spilled out, rolling quietly across the tiles. He stared at it, his vision blurring. I was coming home to you, he whispered, his voice breaking. I chose you. The weight of the empty room pressed down on him. The silence that had once been peaceful now roared in his ears. He buried his face in his hands, his shoulders shaking as the tears finally came. I'm sorry, he sobbed into the quiet. I should have held you tighter, should have fought louder. That night, the mansion that had felt alive with laughter became a hollow place. The gifts lay unopened. The lights burned on in empty rooms. And Kola Dare, a man who had conquered boardrooms and built empires, wept alone for the family he had lost without even getting the chance to say goodbye. That night, when the small, rented room had fallen quiet and her mother's tired breathing filled the darkness, Zara lay awake on the thin mattress, staring at the cracked ceiling. The fan creaked with every slow turn. Her little chest felt too tight for such a small body. The garden, the laughter. Psst. Most of all, she missed Kola. Daddy Val. The way he tucked her in. The way he called her. My brave Rose. She turned gently, careful not to wake her mother. Amara slept with one arm across her eyes, as if even in sleep she was shielding herself from pain. Zara slid from the bed, her bare feet touching the cold floor. On the small table beside the mattress lay her mother's phone. Zara stared at it for a long moment, her heart beating fast. I'm sorry, Mommy, she whispered. I just want Daddy Val to know where we are. Her small fingers fumbled with the phone. The light from the screen lit up her worried face. She had watched her mother dial the number many times. She knew it by heart. With a trembling hand, she pressed the call button and held the phone to her ear, stepping quietly outside into the narrow corridor. The line rang once. Twice. Kola, came the sleepy voice on the other end. Zara's voice broke instantly. Daddy Val, it's me. It's Zara. The sound of her voice snapped him fully awake. Zara, he said, sitting up in bed, his heart leaping and sinking at the same time. My little Rose, where are you? Are you okay? Zara sniffed, tears sliding down her cheeks. We're okay, sir, Daddy. Mommy brought us far away. Please don't be angry with her. She was crying when we left. But I miss you. She misses you too. She just doesn't say it. Kola's hand tightened around the phone. Where are you, Zara? Tell me, my child. I'm coming to you now. Zara looked down the corridor, then outside through the small window at the quiet street. There is a blue gate, she whispered urgently, near the bus park. The sign says Good Shepherd Lodge. Our room is upstairs. Please come before morning. Mommy will wake up soon. I'm already on my way, Kola said, his voice thick with emotion as he grabbed his keys. Stay where you are. Lock the door. I'm coming for you. Zara nodded, even though he couldn't see her. Okay, Daddy Val, please drive slowly. She ended the call. Wiped her tears with the back of her hand and slipped back into the room. Curling beside her mother, her heart pounding with hope. Less than an hour later, the sound of a car stopping outside broke the night's silence. Kola stepped out, his eyes scanning the building until they found the faded sign Zara had described. He rushed up the narrow stairs, his breath uneven, and knocked softly, urgently. Amara woke with a start. Who is that? She whispered, fear flickering across her face. Zara sat up, her eyes shining. Mommy, it's Daddy Val. Amara froze. What did you say? The knock came again, firmer now. Amara Kola called through the door, his voice trembling. Please, I know you're in there. Amara's hands shook as she moved to the door. When she opened it and saw him standing there, eyes red, chest rising and falling with emotion, she staggered back as if struck. Kola, Ma? She breathed. How? How did you find us? Zara ran into his arms. I told him, Mommy. I was scared you would never see him again. Kola knelt, hugging Zara tightly, then slowly stood to face Amara. The air between them was heavy with all the words they had not said. I came because I couldn't breathe without knowing you were safe, he said softly. Please, talk to me. Let me understand. Amara's eyes filled with tears. Your mother hates me, she said, her voice breaking. She said I would never belong in your world. She said my past would always follow me into your future. I heard everything, Kola. I didn't want to be the woman that stands between a son and his mother. I didn't want Zara to grow up feeling unwanted. Kola stepped closer, his voice firm but gentle. You should have come to me. You and Zara are my world now. I don't care where you came from. I care about where we are going. Amara shook